Welcome to Landlord Self-Help Center's module about the L1 application to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent and to collect rent the tenant owes. The information offered in this presentation is intended as general information. It is not legal advice. If you need more information, please contact a legal service provider. Before filing the L1 application, double-check your N4 notice to make sure it was filed out and served to the tenant correctly. Any mistakes made on the N4 notice or an improper method of service will mean that the L1 application could be dismissed at the Landlord and Tenant Board hearing. This application can be filed with the board as early as the day after the termination date on the N4 notice. Make sure to follow the timelines as this eviction process can take significant time to complete. When filing the L1 application, you will have to submit a copy of the N4 notice served to your tenant along with a certificate of service, which is a one-page form that tells the board how and when you served your tenant with the notice. This form can also be found on the Landlord and Tenant Board website. If someone served the N4 notice to the tenant for you, they will have to fill out and sign the certificate of service. Please watch our certificate of service module for more information. Please note that the following step-by-step information provided in this module can also guide you through filing the L1 application on the Tribunals Ontario portal. The address in this section should match the address of the rental unit listed on your N4 notice to end your tenancy for non-payment of rent. Total amount the tenant owes. It may be helpful to fill out this section last since you need the total from Part 6. Do not include any charges or fees that are separate from the rent, such as electricity, water, heating fuel, or cable on this application if these charges change every month. If these charges are fixed amounts, you can include this amount as part of the rent. Contact a legal representative if you need further clarification. Landlord's information. If there is more than one landlord, use the Schedule of Parties form from the Landlord and Tenant Board website to add them to the application. If you include your email address on the application, make sure you check your email regularly as the Landlord and Tenant Board may email you important information about your hearing. As an added precaution, make sure to also check your junk mail folder. Tenants' information. If there are more than 2 tenants, you should also use the Schedule of Parties form to add them to the application. Fill out the related application section only if you or your tenant has filed a different application with the Landlord and Tenant Board and that hearing hasn't happened yet. Reasons for the application. Make sure to check the boxes to indicate what you want the order from the Landlord and Tenant Board to include, such as rent owing or NSF charges if applicable. Indicate the amount of money you are holding as the last month's rent deposit and when it was collected. If the tenant has been living in the rental unit for over 1 year, indicate if you have paid interest on the last month's rent deposit. If you haven't paid any interest, leave this section blank. In order to file this application, the tenant must still be in possession of the rental unit. If the tenant has moved out of the unit completely, you will not be able to continue to file this application. You would have to file an L10 application to collect money a former tenant owes instead. Details of the application. Unless the tenant made partial payments after they were given the N4 notice or new rent came due, this table should look the same as the rent owing table on the N4. If new rent came due after you served the N4 but before you file the L1 application, this amount can be added in the rent owing chart on the L1. Refer to the N4 notice for non-payment of rent module for the initial missed rent periods for this example. Details of the application. If you had to pay NSF charges to your bank because a check from your tenant bounced, you can include the fees you had to pay to your bank plus a maximum administration fee of $20 for each occurrence. Total amount owing. There are different fees depending on the method of filing, paper-based or through the Tribunals Ontario portal. Visit tribunalsontario.ca/LTB/filing and fees to obtain the applicable fee. The total in this section, Part 6, is what you must write as the amount owing in Part 2 of the application. Signature. Only the landlord or a licensed lawyer or paralegal can sign this application. If you are unable to file the application yourself, a friend or family member can file it for you, but you must be the one to sign and date the application. Failure to do this will likely mean your application gets dismissed at the hearing and you will have to refile. If you have a lawyer or a paralegal representative, make sure their information is included in this section. If you don't have a representative and are doing this on your own, leave this section blank. Review the application and read the important information section to make sure you understand what you are filing. Waiting for an L1 hearing can be a long process, so it's best not to wait too long after the termination date on the N4 notice passes before filing your application. You may also find it helpful to observe some landlord and tenant board hearings before your hearing date. Hearings are open to the public, so you will be allowed to observe. You may email the LTB at ltb@ontario.ca and request a hearing link. Thank you for watching this module about the L1 application to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent and to collect rent the tenant owes. The information offered in this presentation is intended as general information. It is not legal advice. If you have a specific issue or situation, please contact a legal service provider.